I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day little black boys and girls will be holding hands with little white boys and girls. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Those words, they still, to this day, they ignite a passion inside of us. And they were words that shaped a nation. They were words that freed a people. Words that far transcended racial lines. Words that we celebrate this very day. Happy birthday, Dr. King, born today in 1929. Reverend, we remember you. Reverend, we remember your peace. Reverend, we remember your courage. And Reverend, we remember your struggles. If he were alive today, he would be 83 years old. 83. And what does that tell us? I mean, my grandma is older than that. So what does that tell us? It tells us that it was not very long ago when this nation, on a grand scale, refused to look at one another's heart, but rather with looming eyes of judgment based on appearance. And there's been amazing leaps forward, and we give thanks for the fruits of that movement. But together, as we sit here today in our Harlingen Sanctuary, we quietly know that we face a similar kind of prejudice from a different generation. One that seeks to defy our nation's creed that all men are created equal. Many people, some we know and most we don't, refuse to see our hearts. Refuse to see our kind existence. Refuse to recognize the new, vibrant colors that our family units bring to society. And they refuse to see GLBT as people, but rather aberrations that need to be dismissed, discarded, and despised. And all because they look upon us from afar, with preconceived notions and fears about who we are, or who they were told we are as people. In the words of Dr. King, we must learn that the heart can never be totally right when the head is totally wrong. I wish, that the people of today would understand, that history is not a class, nor is it a grade, but it is an imperative course of reflection. It is a necessary aid to find an exit from the revolving door of the past. If we forget the holes that we dug, then we will most certainly fall again. And its effects are absolutely devastating. During the Civil Rights Movement, we lost so many brothers and sisters to a despicable practice called lynching. Lynching is just hateful killing by many. And it's usually by hanging. My heart even hurts to say it, like my lips have somehow betrayed me by saying the word. And as we start to turn that revolving door of the past, and as we look at the gay rights movement today, what kind of casualties do we see? Matthew Shepard certainly has something to say about lynching. Harvey Milk certainly has something to say about lynching. Larry King, the 15-year-old shot in math class on Valentine's Day, certainly has something to say about lynching. And those are just a few stories that you know well. Yet the revolving door still spins many upon many out. What is even more heart-shattering, which gives us such tearful pause, are the desperate stories that we hear that truly are nothing short of self-lynching. The hateful killing of one by many. It's our beautiful, soft-faced gay and lesbian youth lynching themselves, usually by hanging. Those little precious angels simply taking the loathsome and shuddersome words they've heard all their life and converting it to the action that those words implied. Self-lynching. Just this week, we lost another. Yes, another gay teen committed suicide this week. You probably didn't know it because they have become so frequent that they don't even make the mainstream news anymore. I guess the shock value is gone. The story's already been told before. Or the candidates eating hot dogs in Iowa polls are more important. This past Wednesday, while we gathered in our sanctuary celebrating our God and celebrating our God-given orientation somewhere in California, Erick James Borges gave up on his. He was 19 years old. He had just made an It Gets Better video last month. In fact, he worked there as an intern at the Trevor Project. Erick said, I was physically, mentally, emotionally, and verbally assaulted on a day-to-day basis. I was stalked, spit on, ostracized, and physically assaulted. In high school, I reached my breaking point when I was assaulted in a full classroom with a teacher present. I dropped out. I graduated through independent school and went to college, where the torment was worse than ever. I had a traumatic coming out experience in an extremist Christian household. My mother knew I was gay and performed an exorcism on me in an attempt to cure me. And then I was kicked out. My anxiety, depression, self-loathing, and suicidal thoughts spiked. I had nowhere safe to go, either at home or school. Maybe you can find your story in bits and pieces of his. And despite, that overwhelmingly, support of his newfound friends, it seems the sum of it all outweigh those little moments of peace. And it turned out just to be too much for Erick. One of the things that really struck me about his video, I watched, is that as he was saying it, I didn't believe him. I didn't believe him. He was saying the right things. His words were encouraging, uplifting even. But there was something in his eyes. They wept, like a desert, dry and tearlessly, with lifelessness, as if there was just none left. You see, the river had run dry, yet drowned he did. He was a victim of judgment, victims of preconceived appearances. And I think this is one of humanity's greatest flaws. And we can all relate to that notion of judgment. You've known victims. Gosh, you've been victims. But the truth is, that we always have to hold a mirror up to ourselves and realize that we've been perpetrators as well. We all have, not to that extent, but we're all guilty in some way or another, myself included. We judge people all the time without even thinking about it. There's been people that make careers out of it. We often think that it's okay to do if we don't act negatively on it. But if prejudicial judgment happens in the heart and no one hears, did it still happen? You see, we judge people by their clothing, by their hair. We judge them by their social class, by their defects, by their weight, by the things about them that are different than our own or different than the norm. None of us are guilt-free, and it's a human nature thing to do. I don't think there's anybody who does not. And it's so deeply ingrained in us. We've been conditioned to judge one another on gender, age, ethnicity, and gosh, the list can go on and on. And even, within our community, we see this happening. We see transgender and drag performers constantly judged and scrutinized and beat down by our own community. It's like, what is going on? Have we not learned anything? Or why are we trying to unpaint a perfect color of our own rainbow? There is even people in our life, sometimes that we keep at arm's length because we've already stereotyped them. And we think that we already know exactly what they're about just by looking at them. So we keep them away. Now wander with me a minute down to the library of life. And stop and think. If we are not to judge a book by its cover, then how are we to judge it? How are we to overcome our prejudices? You know, as always, we will find answers in today's gospel. Now, Jesus is all grown up and has just been baptized. And the Holy Spirit, came down as a dove. And the heavens, some translations say that they were torn open. The dove came down and God's voice said, "You are my son, with whom I am well pleased." And it was a monumental moment, and it marked the beginning of his ministry. Jesus now begins to find and choose his disciples. He walks along the sea and he says, "Follow me, follow me." And first Andrew says yes. Peter says yes. And then Philip says yes. Now in the spirit of making disciples, Philip, after saying yes, goes off and he finds his friend Nathanael. And he says, "Hey Nate, I found him. I found the one that Moses wrote about. I found the Messiah. It's Jesus from Nazareth. Come see." Now Nathanael, he isn't as easy to come, quick to go as Andrew, Peter, and Philip were. When I think about it, we all probably know people that are like Nathanael, especially with sarcasm in our community, as flagrant as it truly is. So Philip says to Nathanael, "Come, it's Jesus from Nazareth." Now you can almost see Nathanael's face. He's like, "Nazareth? I bet he laughed a little bit. Nothing good ever comes from Nazareth, please." That's what he said. You see, Nazareth was a tiny village. It was about 300 people, and it was economically dependent on Sepphoris, which was the capital of Galilee. I mean, it was podunk, it was the sticks, it was the boonies, BFE, Hickville, whatever you want to call it. And the Hebrew scriptures of the time, they never mentioned it, much less the coming Messiah. It'd be like me telling you that the next president is coming from Arroyo City, population 400. You'd be like, okay. But, right. So, when Philip says that, when he says, Jesus is from Nazareth, Nathanael automatically gets all critically judgmental. Nazareth, and he has these, his preconceived notions about what that means comes out. And he says, nothing good ever comes from Nazareth. He's being judgmental. And in his view, because of that, Jesus could be nothing more than a simple Jew from an insignificant village and of no consequence. That's what it meant to him. So there it is. Judgment. Nathanael was singing our tune. In fact, the truth in the story is that he is not only judging fellow man, but Christ himself. And in some ways, we too judge God based on appearance, or rather based on what appears or does not appear in our life. We place limitations, when we do place limitations on his power, or when we deliver criticism on the lack of things delivered, that is most certainly judging our Father in the highest. Just like Nathanael. So back to the question, how do we judge a book if not by its cover? How do we overcome our prejudices? Well, how does Nathanael do it? After hearing Nathanael's comment, Philip says 3 words. 3 words that is the key to answering these questions. Philip says, "Come and see." Come and see. And Nathanael did, and lo and behold, Jesus was not a simple Jew from an insignificant village at all. He was more in all that Philip said that he was. Jesus surprised him. Nazareth surprised him. Come and see. That is the key. Reverend King said that people fail to get along because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they have not communicated with each other. In the words of today's Gospels, they did not come and see one another. We must understand that if we want to blow prejudice and judgment out of the water, then you must uncover the real truth waiting inside of someone. Give them an opportunity to let freedom of character ring. You must give them a chance to unveil the unexpected greatness hidden in them. You must come and see. You must go and see. In the Library of Life, if you want to judge a book, you must get close enough to hold it in your hands. You can't judge it from the shelf. You must open it, you must read it, you must live it. Then everything that you thought to be true will be replaced with what you know to be true. If you can look past appearance, overcome fear, and approach boldly, then more than likely you will be pleasantly surprised at what you find. You see, by coming and seeing, you are honoring differences. By coming and seeing, you unhinge the door that divides the masses. By coming and seeing, you, like Reverend King, become the conduit for lasting change. Today, I challenge you, as you look over your life, to give that someone a chance. That person that you are holding at arm's length because of fear, because of stereotypes, and because you think you already know what they hold or what their story is. And when you do, they just may uncover within you unimaginable gifts and blessings that can change the course of your life. And you just might find that you are more alike than different after all. Faith is taking the first step even when you can't see the whole staircase, says Dr. King. You see, you have a choice in this life. You can either be like Nathaniel, who believes and is blessed because he comes and he sees, or you can be like the adversaries of Christ, the Pharisees and the others who miss out because they are unwilling to see beyond appearances, unwilling to come and see. At the end of the gospel today, Jesus says to Nathanael, you are going to see greater things than this. Heaven will open up and the angels of God will ascend and descend on the Son of Man. He is referencing Jacob's ladder, and he says that he, Jesus from Nazareth, and Christ from heaven, is that very ladder. He is the ladder that connects heaven and earth. He is the very ladder that can overcome any wall of fear, topple any wall of judgment, climb any wall of prejudice. The very ladder that can tear down any wall that divides the body of Christ. Because Jesus says that, I can confidently say that I want to be very clear today to anyone in the valley or anyone who holds any kind of prejudiced, biased, or negative views about the gay community, that this sermon, that this church stands as an open and honest and long-standing invitation to come and to see. Test the ladder. Peek over the wall. Choose to read the book cover to cover and come and see. We're waiting for you. Doors open, hearts ablaze, and with Christ in our midst. We beckon in truth and understanding so that our children can be lynched no more. Lastly, as we remember Erick James Borges, we claim the promise that the same dove that descended upon Jesus during his baptism is now fluttering all around Erick, echoing those words. You are my son, in whom I am well pleased. Welcome home, Erick. As an artist, which he was, we want to remember not his death, but we want to remember his mark upon the earth. Of course, Erick loved Lady Gaga, which we see often in these stories, and his friends say he often quoted her, which is why we will honor that. But, in fact, she really inspired him. He was an avid and creative filmmaker. I'm sure he would have many more pieces to come. But I know that Erick would want nothing more than for his work to be seen and his message to be heard. Erick? We're watching, we're listening, and we're praying that the world is too. So together, we'll watch the short film that he made and he also performed in, which is so appropriately entitled Invisible Creatures.
life ain't always what you think it ought to be. No, ain't even gray, but she buries her baby. The sharp knife of a short life. Well, I've had just enough time. If I die young, bury me in satin, lay me down on a bed of roses, sink me in the river. At dawn, send me away with the words of a love song. The sharp knife of a short life. Well, I've had just enough time. And I'll be wearing white when I come into your kingdom. I'm as green as a ring on my little cold finger. I've never known the loving of a man. The chef felt nice when he was holding my hand. There's a bar here in town says he'll love me forever. Who would have thought forever could be severed by the sharp knife of a short life? Well, I've had just enough time. So put on your best boys and I'll wear my pearls. What I never did is done. Penny for my thoughts, oh no, I'll sell them for $1. There was so much more after we're gone, and maybe then you'll hear the words I've been singing. It's funny when you're dead how people start listening. If I die young, bury me in satin, lay me down on a bed of roses, sink me in the river. At dawn, send me away with the words of a love song. Oh, the ballad of a dove. Go with peace and love. Gather up your tears and put them in your pocket. Save them for a time when you're really gonna need them.